The most important thing about frequency work is it gets to the root of the problem. Okay. So what does that even mean? So when, we're in life, there's always something, it doesn't matter who you are, how amazing your life seems on the outside. There's always a place we tend to get stuck. Okay. So whether it is in relationships, I mean, not just intimate partnerships, but like relationships, maybe you kind of have challenge there, or whether it's in your health, or whether it's in your abundance, or in your career, wherever it is, there's a place that we tend to get stuck over and over again. And we try to resolve it in different ways. People use personal development, they use coaching, they use alternative therapies, but they can't really seem to get to the root of the problem. And the reason that they can't is because everything actually occurs on the frequency level first before it comes into physical form. So I'm going to go way back. Okay, this is a very sort of introductory concept, but it's important, I think, to remind ourselves because a lot of people forget this very important thing. Frequencies create the physical reality. Okay, so backing up again, everything is vibrating, everything. So, and this is not a new concept. I think a lot of people have heard this idea. And how fast or slow the vibration is, dictates what it is to us, right? So, for example, if you have water, right? If the water molecules are vibrating very fast, it's steam. If the molecular vibration slows down, it becomes liquid. If it slows down even more, it becomes ice. Okay. Imagine that on a much bigger scale, right? So if you have the vibrational level of consciousness, which is very, very high, and then you have pure source or the divine or oneness, whatever you want to call it, it's extraordinarily highly vibrating. Okay? We can't even measure it. It's that high in resonance. In order for there to be physical form, it needs to slow in vibration from the oneness or pure source. It drops in frequency resonance, and it drops and it drops and it drops and it drops, and it starts to create frequency, which then creates energy, which then, as it drops in resonance or vibrational level even more, creates physical form. The frequency is higher in resonance. It is what creates the physical form. We often forget that. And physical form can be not just like density, like your body, but it's also your thoughts, your emotions, that type of thing. Right? So people think, oh, well, I'm just having these negative thoughts. I'm like, you're having those negative thoughts because there's a frequency or what I call a distortion pattern, which is causing that thought or that emotion or that situation to show up around you. So I'm just going to explain distortion pattern for a minute. So distortion, a pattern, is simply anything that keeps you separate from the oneness. Okay. And often they are things that we are challenged with. Okay. So I'm going to back up again and just say that, from my perspective, what happens is when we come into embodiment, into the density of our bodies, what it often looks like to me is like a sphere of pure source energy, okay, drops into embodiment. So it drops in resonance and comes into a physical form. As soon as that happens, what look like layers and layers and layers of duct tape form around the sphere. Okay. And the sphere is still highly vibrating. It's actually a very specific resonance. And that's what makes you you and me. It's a very specific individuation that is reflected in the rate of resonance, okay, or the vibrational rate. So around that sphere, which is still itself, you have all these layers and layers and layers of duct tape, which form around the sphere. And those layers of duct tape are metaphors for things like your lineage. So meaning what your ancestors experienced very much impacts you. Okay, what your cultural conditioning is, your religious conditioning, all that sort of stuff, your past lives, all that stuff creates layers and layers of duct tape. So the sphere itself is totally fine, but it's weighed down by all of these layers of duct tape.
Which is inherent in being human.
Yes.
Anyway.
Exactly.
It's not bad per se.
No, not
to
bad.
To be a human,
no.
You will have distortion.
Yes.
Right. Otherwise, you'd be conscious.
Exactly.
Okay.
You wouldn't be embodied. And one of the distortion patterns that we have, as you mentioned, is embodiment, because it keeps us separate from being one. Right, with the oneness. So it's okay that you have distortion, but a lot of times with these layers and layers and layers and layers of them, it can be very heavy. We can forget that we are this sphere that's part of the oneness. And we forget that we're infinite, indestructible consciousness, that we are not mired in this one lifetime that's finite, that ends, and that we have scarcity and all this stuff. You're actually part of the infinite. So frequency work is about releasing those layers and layers and layers of the duct tape. We're finally now at the point of consciousness where we're high enough that this work can come in, and there are people like me who can do this kind of work.